always thought I was on the right track. I did everything by the book, studied hard, got a degree in business administration, found a stable job, and paid my own way. But looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. The way my family treated me was never quite right, but I ignored it. I convinced myself that as long as I worked hard and stayed responsible, I'd be valued. I was wrong. My name is Rachel, and at 24, I had a steady job at a marketing firm and was living in an apartment that technically belonged to my parents. It used to be my grandmother's, but when she passed, my dad inherited it. Since I was still early in my career, my parents let me live there under what I thought was a fair deal. I paid for all the utilities and took care of the place, but I didn't have to pay rent. It felt like a good arrangement. I worked hard to maintain the apartment and always contributed financially when I could, sending my parents money for groceries or repairs, even though they never directly asked. But things changed the moment my younger sister, Lily, got engaged. Lily was 21 and still in college. She had been dating her boyfriend, Jake, for about a year, and to no one's surprise, she ended up pregnant. Unlike me, Lily was never expected to be responsible. She was the baby of the family, spoiled and coddled, never pressured to work part-time jobs or plan ahead for her future. I wasn't exactly shocked when she dropped out of school after the pregnancy news, but I was shocked at how my parents reacted. One night, I got a text from my mom, "Come over after work. We need to talk." There was no context, no details, but I had a sinking feeling it wasn't going to be good. When I walked into my parents' house, the atmosphere was off. Mom and Dad were sitting stiffly on the couch, and Lily was curled up in an armchair, looking smug. I barely had time to sit down before Mom dropped the bomb. "Lily and Jake need a place to stay," she said, folding her hands neatly in her lap. "They'll be moving into the apartment." I blinked, trying to process the words. "Wait, what?" Dad finally spoke. "It makes sense, Rachel. You've been living there for a few years now. It's time for you to move on, get your own place." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I had a good job, yes. I was financially independent, yes. But I wasn't prepared to be forced out of my home with no warning just to make way for my sister and her boyfriend, who had no jobs, no income, and no plan. "I need time to find a new place," I said carefully, my heart pounding. Mom waved a hand dismissively. "A week should be enough." A week. They wanted me to uproot my entire life in a week. And then Mom added the kicker. "Oh, and Rachel, you'll still need to keep paying rent." I actually laughed, thinking it was a joke. "You can't be serious." Mom's expression didn't change. "Lily and Jake don't have jobs yet. And with the baby coming, they need stability. It wouldn't be fair to throw them into the world with nothing." I turned to my dad, hoping for some kind of logic, some sense of fairness. "You want me to move out of an apartment I've been paying to maintain, and you expect me to keep paying for them?" Dad frowned, but didn't argue. "Family helps family, Rachel." My stomach twisted. I had been helping my family for years. I was the one who worked through college, who helped with bills, who made sure my parents never had to worry about money. But apparently, none of that mattered because Lily had gotten herself pregnant. I turned to her. She still hadn't said a word. She just sat there, picking at her nails, wearing one of my old sweaters, the same one she had borrowed months ago and never returned. She didn't even have the decency to look uncomfortable about taking my home. "Have either of you even looked for jobs?" I asked, my voice tight. Lily finally spoke, rolling her eyes. "We'll figure it out later. Right now, we just need support. Support." They wanted my support while I was being tossed aside. Something inside me snapped. "No," I said firmly, standing up. "I'm not paying a cent for them. If they're old enough to start a family, they're old enough to support one." Mom's face darkened. "How can you be so selfish?" There it was. The word they always used when I refused to bend over backward for Lily. "Selfish?" I repeated, my voice shaking with anger. "I've been paying for everything myself since I was 18. I've helped with bills. I've never asked for anything. And now you're kicking me out and expecting me to keep paying for people who refuse to help themselves?" "No, I'm done," Lily huffed. "Wow, you're really just abandoning your family like that? Abandoning them?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I turned to my parents one last time. "If you want to enable this, that's your choice. But don't expect me to fund it." I walked out before they could say another word. That night, I started packing. Tears blurred my vision as I folded my clothes, boxed up my belongings, and stared at the home I thought was mine. I had worked so hard to build something stable, something secure. And in the blink of an eye, my own family had ripped it away, but I wasn't going to let them break me. I had some savings money I had set aside for emergencies, and if this wasn't an emergency, I didn't know what was. By morning, I had already signed the lease for a small studio apartment across town. It wasn't perfect, the kitchen was tiny, and the commute to work would be longer, but it was mine. No one could take it from me. And as I taped up the last moving box, I realized something. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of a life where I didn't have to answer to anyone. A life where I didn't have to prove my worth to a family that only valued me when they needed something. For the first time in my life, I was choosing me. And I wasn't looking back. I thought they would at least try to call me. Maybe there would be an apology. A last-minute realization that what they had done was unfair. Or at the very least, a half-hearted attempt to check in on me. But the silence was deafening. I had moved out in just 3 days faster than I expected, but I refused to spend another second in that apartment knowing it was no longer mine. With everything packed, I left my key under my parents' front door and walked away without a word. No one called. No one asked where I was staying. It was like I had disappeared and they were perfectly fine with it. I should have been relieved. Instead, the silence felt like a slap in the face. For the first time in my life, I wasn't part of their world anymore. And the worst part? They didn't seem to care. I threw myself into work. If they weren't going to acknowledge me, fine. I'd focus on myself. My new apartment was small, but it was mine. I stayed late at the office, picking up extra projects, anything to keep my mind busy. My boss started noticing my dedication, and soon I was being assigned to bigger tasks. The more I worked, the easier it became to forget them, until the first message came in. From my mom? "Mom, Rachel, your rent payment didn't go through. Let me know when you can send it." I stared at my phone, rereading the words, trying to process the sheer audacity of it. They hadn't checked in on me for weeks, hadn't asked if I was okay, if I had found a place to stay. But the moment they realized I had stopped paying for an apartment I no longer lived in, suddenly, I was worth contacting. I didn't reply. The next morning, another message came. "Mom, Rachel, I don't know if you forgot, but you still need to cover the apartment expenses. Lily and Jake aren't working yet." They still weren't working. Of course, they weren't. I felt my stomach twist in frustration. I had been out of that apartment for almost a month now, and they hadn't even tried to support themselves. Meanwhile, my parents still expected me to foot the bill. I took a deep breath before typing my response. I don't live there anymore. I'm not paying." The reply came almost instantly. "Mom, Rachel, we raised you better than this. Family helps family." I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around my phone. No. I helped you for years. I worked through college. I paid my own way. I covered bills even when I didn't have to. And you repaid me by kicking me out. I owe you nothing." No response. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt like I had won. A week later, Dad called. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" "Rachel," he said, his voice serious. "We need to talk." I could already tell where this was going. "About what?" "Your sister." "You need to step up." I almost laughed. "Step up for what?" "Lily and Jake are struggling," he said. "They haven't found work yet, and the baby is due soon. Your mother and I can't do this alone. You need to contribute." My patience snapped. "You chose this, Dad," I said sharply. "You chose to kick me out so they could live in that apartment rent-free. That's on you, not me." "Rachel, don't be difficult. I already gave enough," I interrupted. "I gave you years of support. I paid rent. I worked my ass off while Lily coasted through life. And you rewarded me by tossing me aside like I was nothing. Now you want me to help? No. Figure it out yourselves." He let out a frustrated sigh. "So, that's it? You're abandoning your family?" "No," I said coldly. "You abandoned me the moment you made it clear I was just a paycheck to you." I hung up before he could respond. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. The messages didn't stop, but they changed. No more requests, no more fake guilt tripping. Now, they were angry. Mom called me selfish. Dad accused me of turning my back on them. Lily, the sister who had stolen my home without a second thought, actually had the nerve to message me. Lily, wow. Can't believe you're actually doing this to us. Mom and Dad are struggling and you just left? What kind of sister does that? I stared at the text, disbelief washing over me. The audacity. Me, the kind of sister who was kicked out of her home so her unemployed sister and her boyfriend could live rent-free. Lily, that's so dramatic. We needed help. Me? Help yourself. Get a job. I blocked her number. After that, I didn't check my phone much. I focused on myself. At work, I was thriving. My boss noticed how much I had been stepping up, and soon I was given more responsibility. I started saving more, planning for the future, a future without them. Then, one day, my cousin reached out. Rachel, I thought you should know Mom's been telling the family that you abandoned them. I let out a dry laugh. Of course she has. She's saying you just up and left, refused to help, and now they're struggling because of you. Let them say whatever they want. You don't care? I thought about it for a moment. Did I? For years I had cared. I had bent over backward trying to prove my worth to a family that never appreciated it. I had sacrificed my time, my money, my home for them, and they had thrown me away the moment it was convenient. No, I said firmly. I don't care anymore. And for the first time in my life, I actually meant it. After blocking Lily, things went quiet again. No calls, no texts, no attempts at fake concern. And for the first time in my life, I was truly free. I poured myself into work, determined to build something for myself. Without that $1,500 a month draining from my account, I finally had options. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was actually living. I started saving aggressively. Not just for emergencies, but for something bigger. A future where I wasn't at the mercy of my family's decisions. A future where I called the shots. And then, just when I thought they were finally done with me, my mother found another way to get through. It was a Saturday afternoon when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me, maybe curiosity, maybe a lingering sense of duty, made me pick up. Hello? A pause. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in months. Rachel, it's Mom. I exhaled slowly, already bracing myself. What do you want? She sighed, and for the first time, she actually sounded tired. We need to talk. Can you come over? I hesitated. Every rational part of me screamed no, but I needed to see it for myself. So, against my better judgment, I went. The house looked the same, but everything felt different. Mom and Dad sat on the couch, both looking older, more exhausted than I remembered. Lily was nowhere to be seen. What's this about? I asked, standing in the doorway, making it clear I wasn't staying long. Mom wrung her hands. Your father and I, we've been struggling, the bills, the expenses. It's been a lot. I crossed my arms. That's not my problem. She flinched, like she wasn't used to hearing me say no. Dad spoke up. Lily and Jake are still not working. The baby needs things. We thought that maybe you could help. Just a little. I almost laughed. You thought what? Rachel, Mom pleaded. Please. We're asking for a family. I shook my head, anger bubbling beneath my skin. You weren't asking when you kicked me out. You weren't asking when you expected me to keep paying for an apartment I wasn't even living in. Now that you're realizing Lily and Jake are useless, suddenly I matter again? Dad's face darkened. That's not fair, I scoffed. You want to talk about fair? Where was fairness when I was working 2 jobs to pay rent? Where was fairness when I was expected to sacrifice for everyone else, while Lily got to do whatever she wanted? Silence. Mom sniffled, her voice barely above a whisper. We just need a little help. No, I said simply. Dad's jaw tightened. If you walk away from this family, Rachel, don't expect us to welcome you back. I met his gaze, unwavering. You already threw me out once. What's one more time? Then, without another word, I turned and walked out. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the city lights from my window. I felt nothing. No guilt, no regret, no second guessing. For years, I had been the one holding everything together. The responsible one. The fixer. The one who was expected to sacrifice while everyone else coasted. Not anymore. I poured myself a glass of wine, leaned back on my couch, and smiled. This time, They could clean up their own mess. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of missed calls. Mom. Even some of my aunts and uncles' people I hadn't spoken to in months. I didn't need to listen to the voicemails to know what they were about. The family had been mobilized. I could already hear the lectures. Rachel, how could you do this? Your parents need you. Or maybe something softer, more manipulative. They're your family. Don't let pride tear you apart. I wasn't playing this game. I turned my phone on silent and went about my day. It had taken years to break free from them. I wasn't about to let guilt pull me back in. But then, in the late afternoon, my cousin Emma called. Unlike the others, she wasn't part of the guilt-tripping squad. She was the only family member who had ever really gotten me. I hesitated, then picked up. So, your mom's telling everyone you abandoned them, Emma said without preamble. I snorted. Of course she is. She's saying you left them in financial ruin, that you don't care if they end up homeless. I rolled my eyes. They still own their house, right? Yep. Still have jobs? Yep. Still paying all of Lily and Jake's expenses? Emma sighed. Unfortunately, then they're not in ruin. They just don't like that I'm not their backup plan anymore. There was a long pause. You know, Emma said carefully, not everyone's buying their story. People are starting to notice how much they're bending over backward for Lily while pretending you don't exist. Took them long enough? I muttered. Mom said Aunt Karen called them out at dinner last night. Asked why they were making excuses for Lily while treating you like a villain. That caught me off guard. Aunt Karen had always been blunt, but I never expected anyone in the family to push back. What did they say? Your mom got defensive. Said Lily just needs time to adjust to motherhood, that you don't understand how hard it is because you've never had a family of your own. I clenched my jaw. There it was again. That same old narrative. You don't have kids, so your struggles don't count. Emma sighed. Look, I just wanted you to know what was going on. You don't have to do anything, but I figured you'd rather hear it from me than through the grapevine. Thanks, Emma. For what it's worth, she added. I think you did the right thing. I didn't need her validation, but it still felt nice to hear. That night, I lay in bed thinking about what Emma had said. For years, I had let my parents dictate the terms of our relationship. I had let them use me, dismiss me, make me feel like I wasn't enough. And now that I had finally walked away, they didn't know how to handle it. I had broken the script. I wasn't begging for their approval. I wasn't throwing myself at their feet, desperate for scraps of affection. I was just gone, and that terrified them. Because for the first time, they had to deal with the consequences of their own choices. Not me, not anymore. A month passed, and for the first time in my life, I felt at peace. No more last-minute family obligations. No more guilt-tripping phone calls. No more feeling like I had to prove my worth just to be acknowledged. My savings were growing. My career was thriving. My apartment small, but mine was slowly turning into a home. I bought myself new furniture, decorated the way I liked. And for once, I didn't have to think about whether someone else would approve. I was finally living for me. Then, out of nowhere, Lily emailed me. I hadn't heard from her since I blocked her number. For a moment, I debated deleting it unread, but curiosity got the better of me. The subject line was innocent enough, "Hey sis!" But the email itself? It was a shopping list. No greeting, no apology, no acknowledgement of what had happened between us. Just a list of expensive baby items, designer clothes, a high-end stroller, a crib that cost more than my rent. At the bottom, a quick note, "Thought you might want to help out since you're doing so well. Let me know which ones you're getting so we don't get duplicates." I stared at my screen, my blood boiling. Not even a please. She hadn't contacted me in months, hadn't cared where I was living, if I was okay. But now that she needs something, now she remembered I existed. I took a deep breath and typed a response. "Me, are you working yet?" Her reply came immediately. "Lily, Mom and Dad are helping us out. Jason and I are focused on being parents right now. It's a full-time job, you know." I clenched my jaw. "Me, so you're still not working?" "Lily, you don't get it. Babies are expensive, and Mom and Dad can't afford everything. That's why I thought you'd want to help. Family, right? Family." Funny how she only used that word when she wanted something. I took a deep breath and typed my final response. "Me. If you and Jason are mature enough to have a child, You're mature enough to figure out how to support one. I'm not funding your choices. Good luck." Then I blocked her email. For good this time. A week later, my mother called from a different number. I should have ignored it. But some part of me, maybe the last shred of hope that she had finally come to her senses, made me pick up. "Rachel," she started, her voice tight. "What do you want, Mom?" I asked, already tired. "How could you be so cruel to your sister?" she snapped. I sighed, rubbing my temples. "I assume Lily told you I refused to buy her baby things. She's your sister. And she's also an adult who made a choice. And now she has to live with it." Mom's voice turned sharp. "You have no idea how hard it is for her." I almost laughed. "No, Mom. You have no idea how hard it was for me working through college, paying my own way, covering bills while you coddled Lily. And now that she's in a situation she created for herself, you expect me to fix it? No. Rachel, please." "No," I said firmly. "I am done. You made your choice when you kicked me out. You chose Lily over me, and I accepted that. But don't you dare come crawling back now just because she's bleeding you dry." There was silence, then a broken whisper. "We just need a little help." I swallowed down the lump in my throat. "Then ask Lily's fiancé to step up. Ask the father of her child to get a second job instead of expecting me to clean up their mess." "Rachel, no. I have nothing else to give you." And this time, I meant it. I hung up. And for the first time, I felt free. A few months passed. The silence from my parents and Lily stretched on, but this time, it didn't bother me. I had learned to embrace it. Without them constantly draining me emotionally and financially, I was thriving. Work was going better than ever. I got a raise, then a promotion. With my new salary, I finally started looking at condos instead of apartments. Owning a place had always seemed like a distant dream, but now it was within reach. I had stopped waiting for approval from people who had never really valued me. Instead, I surrounded myself with people who did, friends who actually cared, coworkers who respected my hard work, a life that was mine. Then, out of nowhere, my cousin Emma called again. "Rachel, you're not going to believe this. Try me." Emma hesitated, then sighed. "Your parents kicked Lily and Jake out of the apartment. I nearly dropped my phone." "Wait, what?" "Yeah. Apparently, your mom found some messages on Lily's phone. She was bragging about how she could keep having kids and never work because Mom and Dad would always support her." I blinked. "So, they finally realized she was using them? Looks like it. There was a huge fight. Your dad lost it. Told them they had 3 days to get out and that they weren't paying for anything else." I let out a slow breath. It had finally happened. I had spent so many years watching my parents enable Lily, watching them twist themselves into knots to justify her laziness. And now, after everything, they had finally hit their limit. "Where did they go?" I asked. "They moved in with Jake's parents," Emma said. "And from what I hear, his mom isn't as accommodating as yours." I smirked. "You mean she actually makes them contribute?" "Exactly. She has them on a strict budget. Lily has to do chores, take care of the baby, actually parent instead of dumping everything on other people. And Jason? He has to work full-time now." I almost laughed. Lily must be miserable. After years of having everything handed to her, she was finally facing reality. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. But I did wonder what my parents were thinking now that they had finally seen her for who she really was. A few weeks later, I got my answer. A package arrived at my door with no return address. Inside was a silver picture frame, elegant but simple. I recognized it immediately. Years ago, I had admired one just like it while shopping with my mom. At the time, it had been too expensive for me to justify buying. There was a note. "We're sorry. We miss you. When you're ready, we'd like to talk." Both Mom and Dad had signed it. No demands. No guilt. Just 9 simple words. I stared at it for a long time. I should have felt something, vindication maybe, satisfaction. But mostly, I just felt tired. They had chosen Lily over me for years. They had watched me struggle, dismissed me, discarded me the second I was no longer convenient. And now that Lily had drained them dry, now they were reaching out? I wasn't sure if I was ready to forgive them, but I also wasn't sure if I wanted to hold on to this anger forever. So I placed the frame on my coffee table and pinned the note to my fridge. Not as an invitation, but as a reminder. A reminder that I had built this life for myself. That I had walked away, not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. And that if I ever did decide to let them back in, it would be on my terms. For now, though, I had a condo to buy, a future to build, a life to live. And for the first time ever, I was doing it entirely for me. Story 2. Nowadays, most people just call me Elaine, but my name is Dr. Elaine Harper. After decades of saving lives, I now shuffle papers at a small hospital and counsel the occasional greenhorn doctor. But none of that is relevant now. I'm getting ready to meet Sarah, the fiancée of my son Michael, today. While my normal apartment is being refurbished, I'm holed up in this modest, nondescript rental. It's comfortable enough for a short-term location, but it's nothing special. I decided to make up my renowned apple pie. A handmade pie is the best way to win folks over, isn't it? I was washing my hands on my apron after taking the pie out of the oven when the doorbell rang. I walked over to open the door. There was Michael, looking as lovely as ever, and alongside him, Sarah. She had a distinctive and rather cunning aspect about her, and she was just as beautiful as Michael had described. "Mom, this is Sarah." With pride in his voice, Michael introduced himself. "Elaine, nice to meet you," Sarah said, extending a somewhat too rigid hand. "Come in, please." "You must be hungry. The pie has just come out the oven." Grinning, I moved aside to make room for them. As Sarah entered, she glanced around the little living room and kitchen area. As she took in the plain walls, the old kitchen cabinets, and the used furnishings, I noticed the little wrinkle in her brow. It's in dire need of painting. Finally, with a kind grin that stopped short of her eyes, she added, "It's cozy." "Michael informs me that you work at the hospital, Elaine." "There. What do you do?" "Oh, it's just some office work these days," I answered, dismissing the true burden of my profession. "I don't need to brag about my accomplishments." Michael gave me a startled expression. "Why don't you tell her about it, Mom?" With a brief wink, I interrupted him and started cutting the pie. "Ignore it. Have some pie, please. Sarah, you'll adore it. This recipe is unique to me." Sarah was more engaged in questioning than in eating when we sat down. "How did you pay for Michael's private education then?" The compensation of a hospital administrator must have been difficult. It was a surprise question. It annoyed me a little since it was so direct and intrusive. I raised my voice steadily. "Well, my parents helped me out a little. A tiny nest egg. They abandoned me." She was clearly assessing me, attempting to understand how a person with a low-paying job could have raised a son with such a luxurious upbringing. Her inquiries resembled interrogation more than anything else. They all delivered with a savagery that was somewhat concealed by a facade of civility. Fortunately for him, Michael didn't appear to notice the tension. With all of the tech support at work, Sarah has been excellent. "Mom, you ought to watch her in action. It's impressive." With real interest, I turned to Sarah and remarked that, right now, isn't technology truly the way of the future? Yes, it is. Being at the forefront and working on a project that truly has an impact is incredibly fulfilling. Sarah's tone, which I couldn't quite describe, was a combination of pride and something more. We kept talking over pie, ranging from Michael's work to their upcoming nuptials. I tried my best to greet Sarah. They departed later that night, despite the rough beginning. Michael embraced me warmly, but Sarah's goodbye was chilly, her grin a trained curve that didn't quite warm her eyes as I cleaned the dishes. I mentally noted that I needed to pay more attention. Michael was my world, and I'd be damned if I allowed anybody tamper with his happiness. I had anticipated that things would become better with Sarah after that first uncomfortable encounter in my little rental. However, the tension between us increased as the wedding preparations accelerated. Sarah managed to avoid my attempts at engagement with a kind of courteous coldness that made me feel disconnected from my own son's destiny. Michael and Sarah stopped by one day to talk about some of their wedding plans. In an effort to create a welcoming atmosphere, I had prepared some coffee and laid out some snacks. "We were considering choosing a location beside the lake, Mom. What are your thoughts?" Scattering venue images on the coffee table, Michael posed the question. Sarah interrupted me before I could respond. "It's a little out of town, Elaine. Some of our guests might not like the distance, but I'm not sure." "Mike, I believe we're considering a location in the downtown area. She spoke in a casual tone, but before I could even add anything, she interrupted. I made an effort to speak evenly. It sounds like a beautiful lake. Michael, it would be a bit of a drive and provide for lovely pictures. Do no harm to others. The loud, tinkling sound of Sarah's laughter annoyed me. Yes, but we don't want our guests to spend half the day on the road because traffic can be such a pain. Instead, I forced a grin and bit my tongue on a more scathing response. Yes, downtown is pleasant as well. There are many wonderful sights there. Michael noticed the tension between us but chose not to address it. Conflict, especially between those he loved, was something he detested. Correct? You know what, sweetie? Sarah has been investigating some fantastic downtown locations. He smiled encouragingly at Sarah. Of course. She flipped her hair over her shoulder in response. Elaine, too. We were also considering a contemporary wedding theme. Very stylish and sleek. You like something more conventional, I suppose? She glanced at my old coffee cups and shabby tablecloth. Her statements were laced with implicit condemnation. I tightened my jaw, feeling the burn. Modern is okay with me. What matters is that you two are satisfied with it, I said. That's lovely of you, Sarah remarked. She grinned tightly. We're just striving for something a bit more modern. The image is crucial. Ultimately, I was nodding along as they went on to go over specifics. However, my thoughts were elsewhere. Every word Sarah said seemed to be intended to make me feel inferior and to emphasize how little she valued my presence or opinions. There was a deep stillness in my flat after they departed. Even though I was accustomed to being by myself, this seemed unusual. This was solitude inside my own family. In my face, a door was gently but forcefully closed. I sat at the window and watched the street lights flicker while I poured myself a glass of wine. A mother's concern weighed heavily on my heart. Michael has always looked to me for support and guidance through the rough seas of life. Sarah appeared to be in charge now, leading him in a path I wasn't sure I should go. Just have to watch and wait. I sipped, whispering to myself. I'm still in this game, though. By no means. Even though our connection was chilly, I wasn't going to miss my own kid on his birthday. Festivity. My invitation somehow got lost in the hustle, as Sarah took charge of planning everything. A mother, however, is always by her son's side, particularly on his birthday, so I went anyhow. I carried a small, thoughtfully wrapped gift when I got to Michael's house. As I walked in, I took a deep breath and noticed that the place was lively, with music and laughter bursting from the door. The doorbell rang. My chest is thumping with my heart. Crash attending a party was one thing, but showing up at your son's party without invitation was quite another. The door was opened by Sarah. When she saw me, her smile somewhat faded. Elaine, how unexpected. We didn't anticipate you. Her remarks stung, but I preserved my calm. My son's birthday would not be missed. Michael is where? He's someplace. Reluctantly, she moved aside to allow me to enter. Well, come in, I guess. The house was decorated in grays and blues, a chic, contemporary style that begs for Sarah's influence. I passed past crowds of individuals that I didn't know. They were all Sarah's friends, young and trendy. The air filled with their laughter and the clinking of glasses. At last, I discovered Michael engaging in conversation with a group of individuals who appeared to be his coworkers. Michael. My voice caught a little as I cried out. His expression brightened as he turned to face me. You made it, Mom. He excused himself and came over, giving me a huge embrace. Without a doubt, I would not miss it, I replied as I gave him his present. Honey, happy birthday. Thank you, Mother. Thank you so much for being here. He appeared genuinely thrilled, but there was a tinge of perplexity in his eyes, as if he was trying to figure out why I'd say such a thing. Sarah showed up next to us. She grinned tightly. Michael, your buddies were wondering about you. She turned to face me after saying that. Would you want a drink? Elaine? Thank you, but no. I said, I'm fine, feeling uncomfortable with her kind yet aloof manner. Later in the evening, I made an effort to socialize, but I felt alienated by Sarah's close-knit group of acquaintances. Every conversation felt tense, with Sarah frequently interrupting to divert Michael's attention or taking over the conversation with stories about her career, achievements, and future plans. I once heard her conversing with a friend. She spoke loud enough for me to hear. Yes, her appearance was a little awkward. Given the mood, I didn't expect she would show up. It was a slap of words. I wasn't just not invited. I wasn't wanted. She was feeling uneasy, or worse, embarrassed around her circle because of me. It was a painful discovery, and I ended up withdrawing to a peaceful corner and sipping my drink. I couldn't recall accepting. Michael found me a little bit later, his face strained. "How are you doing, Mom? You look a little strange." In order to avoid ruining his day with my emotions, I faked a grin. "I'm just a little fatigued. The day has been long. Would you prefer me to drive you home, or would you like to remain longer?" I didn't want to take him away from his buddies, even if his concern was sincere. "No, you stay. Have fun at your party." "I'll get a cab," I said, getting to my feet. "I simply wanted to come see you and give you a personal birthday greeting." He held me, seeming frightened. "Thanks for coming, Mother. I cherish you." "I also adore you, sweetie. Always." And so I snuck out. As the door shut, I heard laughter reverberating behind me. In contrast to the warmth of a gathering where I was obviously an outsider, the night air was refreshingly cool. One day before Michael's wedding, it was a clear morning. The only sound in my kitchen was the hum of the refrigerator, so I was anticipating a delivery when I heard a tap at the door. After wiping my hands on my apron, I went to respond. I was shocked to see Sarah standing by herself. She had a solemn expression on her face that was not encouraging. "Why are you here so early, Sarah?" I managed to inquire in a courteous manner. Without waiting for an invitation, she entered. Her barely veiled scorn swept across the modesty of my rented flat. "I'll go right to the point, Elaine. I'm here to make everyone's life simpler. For you, I have a suggestion." "Oh," I said. Even when the cold crept into my veins, my curiosity was aroused. She reached inside her slick, oversized purse and produced an envelope, which she handed out to me. "If you don't go to the wedding tomorrow, I'll give you $1,000. We believe it's better that way." I looked at her in disbelief. She was shocked that she thought this would be okay, not because she was so forward. "And why do you suppose I would take such an offer?" Let's be honest, Sarah's response was a grimace with her lips curled. "Elaine, the type of event we're organizing might not be a good fit for your presence. You know, with all the dignitaries attending." I knew I had to handle this with cunning, so I clasped my hands at my sides. "I apologize. I believe I misheard you." As I always did when I feigned not to hear something annoying, I lied and tapped my ear. Sarah repeated loudly, "You want to pay me to skip my own son's wedding?" with a frustrated sigh. "You don't really fit the scene, Elaine. Everything about you, including how you dress. It's just not up to standard. We can't have you there looking like you do because we have extremely important people coming." She hesitated, probably anticipating some kind of hurt or surrender from me. But I remained solid, my determination strengthening. "Continue, Sarah. I'm paying attention." "And with this money," she said, brandishing the envelope, "you can maybe tidy up this location or buy something decent to wear some other time. You should be glad I'm providing this." Her nerve almost made me chuckle. She assumed this flat was mine and that I required her generosity to clean it up. However, I maintained a neutral face, nodded, and accepted the packet. "Okay, if that's what you truly desire, Sarah." She smiled tightly, and her relief was evident. "Excellent. I'm relieved that you're handling this sensibly." I carefully shut the door behind her after she was gone. A mixture of excitement and rage made my hands shake. I pulled out my phone and pressed the pause button. Her statements had been fully recorded, plain and blatantly harsh. I grabbed my phone and called Michael, speaking clearly and urgently. "Could you come over now, Michael? It's crucial. We must have a serious conversation." "Yes, ma'am. I will arrive as soon as possible." "Is everything all right?" He sounded worried, and I could tell he heard the seriousness in my voice. "Simply come. When you come here, we'll discuss." Michael appeared anxious when he arrived. I exclaimed, "Listen to this," before he had even sat down, and listened to Sarah's proposal on tape. His expression changed to one of shock and hurt as he listened, the color draining from his face. "I'm very sorry you had to hear that, Mom." After the recording was over, he stumbled, "I can't believe she'd say those things." "Tomorrow is the wedding, Michael. What are you interested in doing?" I needed him to take the next step, so I requested in a gentle but forceful tone. He expressed his uncertainty and displeasure by running his hands through his hair. "I'd want to face her. Cancel the wedding and let her know it's over. I can't get married to someone who can do this." I stopped him by raising a hand. "She will play the victim and everyone will regard you as the villain if you do it right now." "We cannot allow her tale to dictate the plot." Michael listened to what I had to say. "What then do we do?" "We must reveal her actual nature to everyone. I heard Sarah on this recording. Let them see her." My voice was calm yet bore the weight of my commitment. He nodded slowly, comprehending the plan. "Okay, Mom. I'm not going to speak to her just yet." I called a number of old acquaintances and former patients after Michael departed, people who had been a part of my life because of the procedures I had done over the years, and who knew me well. During our phone conversation, I mentioned that I needed their help, but I didn't go into detail. I sat back on the couch, feeling both determined and anxious. It would be an important day tomorrow. In one way or another, I was prepared to protect the honor of my family and demonstrate to everyone the true nature of Sarah. The goal wasn't merely to prevent a wedding. It was about shielding my son from a life of deceit and manipulation. Nerves and a strong sense of obligation coexisted on the wedding day. In one way or another, today would mark a turning point. As everyone gathered in the exquisitely furnished hall and spoke eagerly about the day's activities, I readied myself for what was maybe the most difficult task I had ever encountered. The strategy was simple yet catastrophic. A film highlighting the couple's journey together was supposed to play right before Sarah and her father's big entrance. Rather, I had made arrangements with the AV technician to play the Sarah's Cruel Proposition audio tape. My pulse hammered as the time came near, knowing all too well the effect of what was about to be heard. I gave the technician a signal as the guests chatted and eagerly awaited the start. Sarah's crisp, clear voice filled the room as the lights went down, replacing the couple's video's gentle opening music. "If you don't go to the wedding tomorrow, I'll give you $1,000. We believe it's better that way." As the guests processed the words, you could hear their collective gasp and their murmur of shock and confusion. They glanced at one another, disbelief engraved on their features. At that moment, the doors opened for Sarah and her father to make their grand entrance. Nothing could have been more poignant in timing. As they entered, the room fell into an uncomfortable stillness. Her father, oblivious to the underlying tensions, smiled and waved, but Sarah's grin wavered under the pressure of hundreds of eyes that were suddenly suspicious and critical. As they arrived at the front, I seamlessly transitioned to the second phase of my strategy. A video montage of testimonies from well-known city residents, co-workers, and patients now filled the screen, all of whom spoke to my years of dedication as a surgeon, my community contributions, and the lives I had saved. It was a sharp contrast. This was evidence that I had lived a life of respect and service. Directly opposing Sarah's insinuations about my character and standing, Sarah remained still, her face devoid of color as the accolades poured on. At this point, the visitors were totally against her. They whispered to one another, their faces displaying everything from sympathy to contempt. Sarah's mother, seated in the first row, had tears flowing down her face, her hands covering her mouth in amazement. Helplessly, Sarah gazed about. Her formerly calm demeanor broke. She was in the open. In front of the friends and family she had sought to impress, her shallow judgments were exposed. As the stunning video concluded, there was silence in the room. The stillness was thick with the weight of broken expectations and discoveries. After inhaling deeply, my son Michael approached the microphone with a serious demeanor. Everyone in the room was staring at him, their eyes full of interest and worry. "I'm very sorry," Michael began, his voice echoing through the quiet hall, "that I didn't see the callousness and arrogance of my bride sooner." He halted and cast a remorseful glance over the audience. "I regret to everyone for the inconvenience, but I must cancel the wedding." He then turned to look at me, his expression softening. "I'm sorry, Mom. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Without you, I could have made the worst mistake of my life." I felt pride and sadness for what he was going through when his voice cracked a little. A murmur of approval came from the throng, and a few visitors got up, thanking him for his boldness. As I saw my kid standing there, exhibiting the qualities I had wanted to inculcate in him, a man of courage and integrity, a tear ran down my face. Sarah, who had been standing to the side, suddenly started crying. "I was unaware of your mother's past." she cried, her voice begging and desperate. "This alters everything. Could we just speak about this, Michael?" But Michael shook his head. He made a firm decision. "Nothing more needs to be said. It's finished, Sarah." Even her own parents gave her a startled and outraged look. Their looks expressed how disappointed and shocked they were by their daughter's behavior. They had found themselves in the awkward situation of seeing their child's shortcomings exposed in front of a large gathering of people. Sarah's shame and fury spilled over as she realized there was nothing she could do to change the situation. She pointed a quivering finger at me and cried, "This is all your fault." She spoke in a genuine, emotionally charged voice. "You've wrecked everything." And with those last words, the door slammed behind her as she turned and fled the hall, her sobs resonating behind her. Everyone in the room was stunned. Everyone was taking in the unexpected drama that had just happened. I made the move. Michael wrapped an arm over him and groaned. "You made the correct decision," I whispered, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on us both. He put his arm around my shoulders and nodded. "Thank you, Mother. I couldn't have gotten through this without you." As the visitors slowly began to depart, offering modest words of encouragement or merely a grip on the shoulder, I felt a mix of relief and great melancholy. Although none of us had anticipated the day's events, honesty and truth had won out. Although Michael suffered, he was spared a potentially far more agonizing future. I completed my home's renovations after the storm passed. Now it's lovely, a haven of brightness and tranquility, similar to the new phase of my life. It had been 2 years since that tragic day. Michael's ex-fiancée, Sarah, made several attempts to get in touch with me and beg for a reconciliation. But after everything, how could I? I told her no strongly. Each time, last I heard, she was fired from her job. It turns out that her supervisor attended the wedding, witnessed everything, and wasn't really happy. After that, she left the city, and I'm not sure where she is today. Meanwhile, life went on in the most positive manner. After years of devotion, I finally gave myself the respite I earned when I resigned from my administrative position at the hospital. Michael Medina was not far behind. She is an absolute beauty on the inside and out, a breath of fresh air. Last spring, they were married, and it was the wedding we had always imagined, full of love, laughter, and genuine happiness. Anna and I have a close relationship, and she respects me a lot. Seeing Michael so content and well-matched is a comfort and a delight. During a peaceful meal at my house just the other day, Anna expressed how much she cherishes our friendship. "Elaine, I really admire how you handle everything with such grace. I'm really glad for how welcome you've been." Her words touched my heart with their sincerity. "Dear, I'm so happy to have you in the family. All I could ever hope for is that you bring joy to my son." My voice was heavy with emotion as I answered. The house that had once reverberated with too many silences was now filled with their love and kindness. It was now a home in the purest sense of the word, full of the prospect of future get-togethers and significant life events. I felt lighter and more daring than I had in a long time. Recently, I took a decision that even surprised me. I scheduled a vacation across the world. I've always put it off, but now that everything seemed to be coming together, it seemed like the ideal moment. When I informed Anna and Michael, they were thrilled. "Mom, that's incredible. Seeing the globe has always been a part of your conversation." Michael's eyes brightened as he spoke. "Yes, and it's something you've earned," Anna added, giving me a hug. "We'll manage just fine here. Go make some incredible memories." So here I am, finalizing the itineraries and packing bags, ready to explore the places I've only read about or seen in pictures. It feels like I'm not just traveling to various places, but also into a new era of life, one where I can just appreciate and absorb the beauty of the globe. Story 3, I'm Rachel Harris, and this year marks my 33rd birthday. I live with my 7-year-old kid, Peter, and my husband, Adam, who is 3 years my senior. 3 people make up our family. My spouse and I are attending a friend's wedding today. I just know them by face. And even though I call them friends, they're more like Adam's pals. I'm astounded by how opulent the wedding at the upscale hotel is. I moved aside to use the toilet as Adam met folks he recognized. I was returning to the ceremony on foot. "Oh, look at that defective person," a harsh voice said. For what reason are they present at all? What? I thought. Who are they referring to? I had the impression that everyone around me were intentionally uttering hurtful things loud enough for me to hear. It wasn't only rumors, it was obviously insulting. However, nobody addressed me personally. I left because I didn't want to put up with such impolite conduct. Someone shouted, "Hey, ugly, can't you hear me?" All of a sudden. I chose to ignore it and continued to walk. I wasn't going to let them bother me, and my name isn't ugly. Before I knew it, though, I heard brisk footfall behind me. It stung when someone took a firm hold of my arm. "Hold on a second. I am speaking to you," a lady said. I drew my arm away and gave her a glance. She acted all theatrical as she staggered backward. Another woman gave me a shady look as she hurried over to assist her. "Are you all right, Lauren? Why do you act so harshly?" She glared at me as she asked. "What's happening? Who are you?" "Confused?" I asked. She retaliated. "Who am I? I'm sure you don't remember me." "How impolite." She raised her eyebrows in response to my question. Startled. "What are you discussing? With only a high school degree, do you really believe you have the right to behave in this way? In case you have forgotten, I'll remind you. Lauren, I'm your sister. Do you recognize that name? And our mama is this. Is it true that you have forgotten your own mother?" After giving it some thinking, I gave a little nod. I didn't want to waste time having a meaningful conversation with someone who could have had that name in the past. They were much more irate after my response. 3 males rushed over at that very time. "What's happening?" From over there, we could hear the yelling. "Lauren, are you not yet prepared? You're still dressed normally. For the wedding, you must change." She referred to one of them as Dad. "This person!" Lauren shouted, pointing at me. "This dubious individual entered our wedding covertly. Now, get her out of here." The 3 men had somewhat different reactions. The person she referred to as Dad gave me a wide-eyed, then obviously displeased expression. Noah, the second man, froze in horror, his face becoming white. "Why is Rachel present on this joyous day?" With a shaky voice, Noah inquired. "She must have accidentally slipped in. It's intolerable. Call security, please. Hold on. Pay attention to what you say," Noah said hastily, his face still white. "This individual is." However, the guy known as Dad concurred with Lauren. Noah attempted to step in. I whispered to myself, "You're genuinely ignorant." However, nobody listened to me. Adam showed up at that moment. "Rachel, you're there. I have been trying to find you." Everybody looked at him. I apologized with a little grin. On the walk back, I came into a few odd folks. Adam and I took a step closer. He immediately assesses and comprehends the problem. When Lauren noticed me standing behind Adam, gazing at me angrily, her expression changed. Her parents continued to appear perplexed and unsure of what was going on. The first to speak was a flustered Noah. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harris. Something improper was mentioned by my wife." "I also sincerely apologize to your wife." "Lauren, please, you should also apologize." Noah spoke those words. "Why should I say I'm sorry?" Lauren retaliated by pointing at me once again. "It's her responsibility to apologize. This rude individual interrupted our wonderful day. She's a shame to our family, and I'm not sure how she got here. We ought to have severed our relationship with her long ago and never seen her again. Hold on. Family?" Noah had a startled expression, looking from Lauren to me. At that moment, the 3 individuals known as Mom and Dad intervened. "We're terribly sorry, Noah. The oldest of our daughters is challenging. Even discussing her is unpleasant. All this time, we've been able to keep it a secret. She was evicted from the residence 10 years ago. How did she even learn that Lauren was getting married? What is it she desires? By arriving here without permission. Is she not attempting to spoil the wedding?" Mom went on. "She's really not that smart, Noah. She merely completed high school and was unable to enroll in college. She was merely a burden, doing part-time jobs and wasting time at home. Like a parasite she was. She ought to be grateful for our help throughout her time in high school. So why, despite the fact that they mistreated me, did she sneak into the weddings?" I didn't care about their remarks because I had severed my relationship with them a long time ago. For as long as I could remember, my parents had disregarded me and always given preference to my younger sister, who was 7 years younger than me. Even though these people were officially my family, at least on paper, our house doubled as a clinic, and my father's family had been practicing medicine for many generations. There, my mother provided foreigners with nursing care. Although our family may have appeared to have everything we needed, it was actually a poisonous household. When I was younger, I recall making a lot of effort to get my parents' affection, but I soon gave up since I couldn't understand why they were favoring my sister. I wasn't viewed as attractive, but she was. Fortunately, while this may sound odd, I was intelligent and excelled in school, so I concentrated on my academics with the goal of leaving home as soon as possible. At the time, I thought I was only acting like the family's flawed elder sister. I will not permit you to attend college. There is no way you could get in since you are a flaw by nature. As soon as high school graduation arrives, begin working, gain independence, and make a financial contribution to the household. You ought to be thankful that we ever brought up someone as ugly as you. For that, you owe us. We'll take Lauren's college costs into account. However, you don't have a dime. Even if you acquire a job, you will serve us for the rest of your life. There won't be any significant events. My parents told me this when I was a senior in high school. In fact, I taped that chat as well as several others. They behaved impulsively or verbally assaulted me, and those recordings are still with me now. Following in our parents' footsteps, my sister Lauren likewise mistreated me. She would frequently make fun of me in an attempt to outdo me. In the future, I plan to become a doctor and replace my father. Since my older sister is unable to work hard, I will work hard enough for us both. Oh, that's fantastic. Indeed. Do your best and learn lessons from her blunders. Lauren, do not be concerned. I'll be there for you no matter what. Not like your sister, our pride lies in you. These kinds of talks would take place just in front of me, like I didn't exist. It was like seeing a poorly executed play. I spent around 4 years working various part-time jobs after high school. They referred to me as a burden, yet I continued to remain at home. They wanted to utilize me when it was convenient for them, so they wouldn't let me go. In spite of my family's constant warnings that we wouldn't forgive you if you did this or that, I secretly rented an apartment. After I turned 16, I came to the realization that I no longer need their consent. There were difficulties, of course, such as the requirement for a guarantee for some items, but I managed to make it work. In order for them to not demand a lot of money from me, I also purposefully claimed lower revenue from my part-time work. I gradually increased my funds and began investing. I was expelled from the house after Lauren said she couldn't focus with me there when she was studying for her high school entrance tests. My parents certainly assumed I would return, but for me, leaving was the ideal opportunity to be self-sufficient at last. They must have been taken aback when I, the daughter they believed to be incompetent, never came back, but they quickly stopped caring. Lauren was plenty for my parents. It's been 10 years since then. I heard Lauren and a man named Noah getting into a furious quarrel. They got married today. They are now married. I had already lost interest in this family, so even though my sister's name was on the invitation, I didn't give it much thought at the time. Why are you siding with her? I had been expressing suspicion about her, only for being present. Ruins the atmosphere. Lauren demanded that she be sent out. No, Noah said. I told you more than once, these are the folks I invited. Have you and I even looked at the invitations? Do you recall their official visitors? Therefore, you ought to express regret for your previous remarks. It was unsettling to hear this dispute so soon before their wedding. Suddenly, my father replied, "Wait, isn't he the son of the head of Harris General Hospital?" With a startled expression. My mom was just as shocked. The renowned Harris General Hospital. He is the head physician's son. In the midst of their gazes, Lauren added, startled. Adam smiled as he introduced himself. It's good to meet you. This is Rachel, my wife, and my name is Adam Harris. Adam's parents are renowned physicians with years of experience running a hospital. Adam is also receiving training to become like them. My folks were astounded to hear this. Then Noah raised his voice. It's not real, however, to consider that my wife's sister is Dr. Harris, his wife. How coincidental! That implies that we are now linked. He couldn't conceal his astonishment. Noah expressed regret. I apologize, Dr. Harris, if my kid has previously caused any problem. Prior to his saying anything else, I interrupted him. Noah Schnapp, my sister's spouse, is a physician who practices at a university hospital. My son wasn't feeling well, so I recently went him to visit him. But that's all. Adam appears to be highly respected by Noah, and he has numerous medical contacts. How are we feeling now? Noah then inquired. My diagnosis is that he has to begin therapy immediately. I recommend that you bring him to my hospital so that he may be tested and admitted. Noah's offer was generous, but I said no. In fact, we've made the decision to consult with another physician for a second opinion. It's crucial to be certain. Noah seems taken aback by my answer. He seemed to want to treat my son differently, but I didn't like the thought of my child being viewed as just another way to make money. I smiled and graciously turned down his offer, but then the crowd erupted in a derisive chuckle. Why are you behaving that way? Are you marrying a doctor to make up for not having completed high school? Do you believe that getting married to a large hospital's heir improves you? You haven't changed. There has been no change in your schooling. You also think too simplistically. In fact, you are a parent. What a poor child, with you as his mom. Lauren gave a smirk. Lauren, hello? Stop, please. We are related. Why do you say these things over and over again? Lauren scowled at Noah when he attempted to soothe her, remaining steadfast in her beliefs. Adam then said something. Are these individuals indeed members of your family, Rachel? He questioned doubtfully. No, I said. They are no longer considered family. When a true family abruptly chastises you without cause or won't feed you since you spilled a small amount of food. They would laugh and compare the shabby clothing they discovered in a garbage to the expensive ones. They gave my sister, but they wouldn't give me any of that. They wouldn't destroy my textbooks by soaking them in water or discard my school supplies, claiming I'm too dim to need them. I went on to say that a true family wouldn't put you in a hot shed in the summer or strip you naked in the winter for not lending your sister a book. They wouldn't outright tell you that you're expected to labor for them for the rest of your life or sell your possessions behind your back. The unjust treatment we received at the clinic and the suspicion of mistreatment are noticed by the people in town. It should come as no surprise that no one now brings their children to their clinic. The fact that no one reported it when we were younger is astounding. They aren't even aware that they are to blame for their company's current failure. I quietly disclosed the harsh aspects of my background. Noah had a startled expression. When my parents learned that I was aware of the clinic's financial difficulties after I had gone, they were similarly astounded. During their investigation, my in-laws learned of this information and became quite sympathetic to my situation. Adam shared my sentiments and had investigated my parents' clinic, perhaps in an attempt to get even. Lauren cut in, yelling, "Stop! Quit lying! None of that was done by us. Noah, you are to blame for your failure. Don't trust her. However, it was too late." Noah regarded her with contempt. Had she simply walked away and ignored me back then, I reasoned, none of this would have occurred. Then Noah raised his voice. Actually, you are the one lying. What am I lying about? Lauren said that she couldn't believe Miss S. Harris had just completed high school. She is a successful businesswoman with a college degree who serves as the CEO of a firm that supplies hospitals, including ours, with meals. CEO, Noah explained. My sister looked at me as if she couldn't believe it, and she gasped in surprise. My parents appeared equally taken aback. Quit lying. She just received her high school diploma. Are you implying that she attended college without telling us? My mom made the accusation. Calmly, I said, yes, I did attend college. I didn't need to notify strangers who weren't members of my family because I was already an adult. What do you say? How can you talk like that to your parents? My father yelled. We didn't give you permission to go to college. Why would I require your consent? They were unable to conceal their rage when I gently responded. I worked a variety of jobs after high school and accumulated a respectable sum of money. I still had a lot I wanted to learn and accomplish, so I utilized that money to pay for education. I gained independence from living alone and shown my ability to accomplish anything. I launched my own company while I was a college student. I also met my hubby at that time. It makes me feel quite emotional when I think back on it. My sister, meanwhile, muttered to herself while her face became white. It's unbelievable. She has always struck me as the worthless sibling who is incapable of taking care of herself. Because after being expelled, she would be nothing. But after graduating from college, she married the head of a large hospital and rose to the position of CEO. Why? I believed that I would be the one to succeed. Why does she have greater success than I do? Why does she appear content? Yes. Why? I answered. Perhaps it's because I never gave up and continued to put in a lot of effort, in spite of being treated unfairly. Perhaps good fortune also played a role. I gave my sister a hard look before revealing something startling. I've heard you left middle school, by the way. Is that accurate? Everyone, including Noah and my parents, was in full shock at this announcement. What? What are you discussing? Who left middle school early? My sister retaliated. I heard from a distant cousin, someone who has always been nice to us, but I appreciated her effort to deny it. I went on to say that you believed you could get into a prestigious institution without doing any studies when I left home. You failed as predicted since you were ill-prepared for the test, and wrote virtually nothing. Following that, you began misbehaving at home and withdrawn for a while. It wasn't until our parents suggested Noah as a potential mate for you that you returned to society. As I talked, Noah's expression darkened, and my sister and dad went white. My father's side relative, who is renowned for being adept at obtaining information, provided the information. He took care of me and even served as my guarantor, even though we didn't see each other very much when I was a kid. You're telling lies. What are you discussing? Despite my sister's shaky protests, I went on. Indeed, it is equally untrue to say that you are employed in medical administration, isn't it? In actuality, you lack the necessary skills and are only performing menial duties without taking on any significant responsibility. At least there is some adherence to professional ethics. Quit! You're telling lies. It's all a lie, she said. Perhaps, I said coolly. It was only a rumor that I heard. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. My sister immediately turned to look at Noah's face at that point. He was uncertain, perplexed, and obviously dissatisfied. Lauren, you informed us that you were assisting with your family's hospital, had credentials, and had graduated from a prominent women's institution. Was it all a lie? It is fraud to fabricate your educational history. Are you lying to me? Noah asked her outright. Don't simply trust her, Noah. My husband is you. I'm trustworthy, she begged. Next, mention even one professor from the university you say you attended. Flustered, he confronted her. My sister found it difficult to answer. That isn't significant at the moment. Really? Let's make a call to a professor in the department you mentioned attending. They are a family friend as well. Noah, too. Noah made a proposal, all set to discover the truth. Noah picked up his phone casually as he spoke. Stop, please. Nathan, don't do that, she begged in a panic. Do you believe me? That's sufficient. Abruptly, Lauren grabbed Noah's phone out of his grasp and slammed it to the ground. Checking is not necessary. Just trust me. Anger-fueled, she yelled. She repeatedly destroyed the phone by stomping on it with her high heels. She looked like a monster, her face contorted in anger. Startling. Despite Noah's and everyone else's attempts to soothe her, she remained irate. Other visitors and employees noticed the event and crowded around in worry. A spontaneous outburst caused chaos in the arena. I felt like I was watching from a distance, even though I was actually there. I had lost any sense of belonging to my parents and sister. My spouse and son were the only members of my family left. Should we return home? Here, I believe we fulfilled our obligation. I told Adam. He questioned, seeming a bit taken aback. Rachel, are we heading out already? Calmly, I grinned. It's all right. Come on. Oh, and let's grab some cake from this hotel's cake store. I've heard that one is really well liked at the moment. Adam nodded and grinned. It seems like a smart concept. On the way home, let's pick up the cake. We laughed lightly as we departed the arena. I then learned that Noah was sued for overcharging patients and providing incorrect diagnosis. After that, my ex-parents attempted to contact me for assistance since they were having severe financial difficulties. They arrived at the hospital where Adam works, wanting to meet us, but they had no idea how to get in touch with me. She is the hospital's daughter-in-law. She is our daughter. Let's go see her now. Our issue can be resolved by getting in touch with the hospital director's son. We need our assistance since we're in serious difficulties. She naturally wants to support us because we reared her. They created a commotion during the reception by making loud declarations. However, neither Adam nor I answered. My in-laws were looking at me sternly. "What business do you have with our daughter?" they inquired. My parents froze and hurried out of the hospital, obviously uneasy. After that, they made many attempts to get in touch, but they never gave their own issues any attention. Their hospital eventually had to shut. I didn't feel particularly affected when I learned that my parents' hospital was closing. Rather, I was relieved that they were at last taking responsibility for their acts. For me, it was one of the most revitalizing experiences. I found out later that Noah and Lauren were no longer together. Their marriage had only lasted a few months, which astonished me. Their relationship must have suffered greatly as a result of Noah's involvement in the litigation and his termination from the hospital. Lauren kept making poor choices, but she always seemed driven to surpass me and achieve more happiness. Thinking that having an affair with an older married doctor would help her advance in her career was her first mistake. However, it became a major issue when the doctor's wife claimed compensation once the affair was found. Lauren was so desperate that she appealed to our parents for support, but they rejected her and said she was a disgrace to the family. She had suffered since failing her high school entrance tests and had been alone at home for a while. I'm not sure what happened to her after that. She later worked in dubious jobs and had several challenges that harmed her health and ultimately caused her to become homeless. I became very disinterested in her after hearing these tales. My ex-parents, who are getting close to retirement, are having difficulty finding work as nurses or doctors. Due to their poor reputation, which most likely results from the way they have handled me and others in the past, no hospital will hire them. Now they are only memories of my past, and I don't give them any thought. Regarding my kid, I'm pleased to report that, following examination at a different medical institution, he no longer requires hospitalization and, with the correct medicine, his condition has much improved. I'll keep doing all in my power to keep my family safe.